Today's episode of Nerdist News is brought to you by the CW's Naomi. Here's everything you might have missed in the Book of Boba Fett Episode 3. Another Wednesday means another chapter in the Book of Boba Fett, and this week things got not too fast, but definitely too furious on the mean streets of Tatooine. After last week's deep dive into Tusken culture, the Book of Boba Fett's third episode revealed what appears to be the main villains of the series, more unexpected cameos, and some deep-cut references to the Star Wars lore of yore. Now we're going to break it all down for you in just a moment, but as always, if you prefer to read all about it, we've got you covered over on Nerdist.com. However, to talk about this stuff in detail, obviously we need to spoil what happened in the Book of Boba Fett Episode 3. So if you haven't seen it yet, make like the Major Domo and find the nearest exit.
Did he just lock the door?
Alright, let's get into it, shall we? So much like last week, Episode 3 begins with another exterior shot of what used to be Jabba's palace. As you may know, before it was Jabba's palace and Boba's bungalow, it belonged to the monks of the Bomar Order. We see the remains of one of those monks in the form of that brainwalker droid that's skittering across the sand. Now you may remember seeing a similar droid briefly in Return of the Jedi. After achieving enlightenment, the monks of the Bomar Order sought to remove all physical distractions, so they placed their brains in spider-like robot bodies which now roam the wastes of Tatooine, like we see in the opening of Episode 3. 8D8, the droid voiced by Matt Berry, explains that Mos Espa is now controlled by three crime families, the Trandoshans, the Aqualish, and the Klatooinians. Now, as we know from previous trailers, Boba Fett will have a tete-a-tete with them later in the season. More importantly, we learn that people like Mer Mok Shaiz and other crime families took advantage of Bib Fortuna's lack of power relative to Jabba, which left Boba with a lot of Miss Fortuna to deal with. National treasure Stephen Root guest stars as Lortha Peel, a watermonger working in the Workers' District. And while I was hoping that this would be Peel, the clone trooper turned vampire from the Star Wars Adventures Tales from Vader's Castle comics, unfortunately, he's just an avaricious moisture miser. Now, as we're reminded, Tatooine used to be covered in water, and the Dune Sea wasn't just an elegant name, it was an actual sea. Unlike Boba's homeworld of Kamino, though, the water on Tatooine largely dried up, leaving its inhabitants to farm moisture from water vapor and humidity in the atmosphere as a primary source of hydration.
Dune.
So what's Lortha's problem? Well, a group of local street urchins apparently took his overpriced water without paying for it, those rapscallions. While he's undeniably a jerk, he does kind of hit the nail on the head here.
No one respects you.
Boba Fett has a big problem. Everybody, Lortha Peel included, is taking advantage of him. But the scourge of Mos Espa is apparently just this group of young adult bikers with cybernetic limbs led by Yellow Jacket standout Sophie Thatcher. Basically, imagine if Griff's gang from Back to the Future 2 rode brightly colored motorcycles from Power Rangers or Kamen Rider, and you've got these folks. But Boba Fett is no Boba's fool. Rather than punishing this gang, he hires them to be his muscle. And he tells the Watermonger to accept the new status quo or move to Mos Eisley, the wretched hive of scum and villainy that we first visited way back in the original Star Wars. Now, fun fact, when Boba tells them to gather up their gack, that appears to be an inside joke of sorts among Star Wars crew members. In 2020, Lucasfilm creative art manager Phil Shostak explained on Twitter, gack, properly spelled, is a pretty common behind-the-scenes term among Star Wars crew members for random bits of technology, like the bands of stuff around the edges of the Millennium Falcon. Outside Boba's palace, we see the Circle of Life in action as what appears to be a young bone gnawer bird swoops down to eat a womp rat, only to get devoured by what appears to be a wart similar to the creature we saw outside Jabba's palace in Return of the Jedi. Inside, Boba takes another back-to-bath and dreams of his watery homeworld of Kamino. Much like his spice and lizard-fueled vision from the previous episode, Boba has a flashback to when his father Jango flew away in the Slave One, leaving him behind. We see a reflection of a young Daniel Logan in the class who played Boba in the prequel trilogy.
Yep.
The memory continues with Boba bidding farewell to the Tuskens as he rides off on a bantha to deal with the Pyke Syndicate in Mos Eisley. Riding into town, we see these same stormtrooper helmets mounted on spikes that we glimpsed in The Mandalorian Season 1, Episode 5. In the background, we can see some other returning Mandalorian characters as well. Someone that looks an awful lot like Amy Sedaris' chatty mechanic Peli Motto, who walks by alongside her trusty pit droids. Inside, Boba parlays with a Pyke Syndicate emissary voiced by Phil Lamar. The Pyke Syndicate rep mentions Obadiah, the homeworld of the Pyke species, and the endpoint of the Kessel Run, which Han Solo famously made in less than 12 parsecs.
Not if you round down, buddy.
Boba learns that the Pyke Syndicate is already paying protection to the Kintan Striders, the Nikto biker gang that Boba beat down last week at Tashi Station. These are the same dudes that also torched the moisture farm that we saw previously. And interestingly enough, a Kintan Strider is the name of that large, beefy-looking Dejarik game piece that we first saw in A New Hope. From there, things take a turn for the tropey when Boba returns to the Tusken Raider camp to discover all his friends have been brutally murdered by the Kintan Striders. Those Nikto Sand Riders went full Anakin Skywalker and killed all the Tuskens, including the kid, and burnt the camp to a crisp. Honestly though, after spending so much time developing the Tuskens last week, introducing us to their culture, this just felt gratuitous in a bad way. There's other ways to develop Boba Fett than by murdering everyone he comes to know and love. So Boba burned the Tusken bodies in a funeral pyre along with what appears to be the gaffi stick belonging to that Tusken child. But before he or any of us can really process the trauma of what just happened, Boba is yeeted from his bacta tank by a very angry Black Chrysanthemum, the awesome Wookiee gladiator who's working for the Hutt twins. Now, for those who don't know, Black Chrysanthemum first appeared in 2015's Darth Vader #1 comic alongside Boba Fett on a mission for Darth Vader. A former gladiator and pit fighter, Black K is a fearsome fighter and absolutely the last thing you want to see after you fell asleep in the bathtub. Now, fun fact, Darth Vader writer Kieran Gillen revealed on Twitter, "I swear this isn't a joke. I just went back to my first draft for Darth Vader 1. My working name for Black Chrysanthemum was New Baka." That's incredible. What follows is mostly Boba getting his butt kicked as he desperately tries to find something to defend himself with. Chrysanthemum uses his trusty brass knuckles, which are electrified for Boba's displeasure, and although Boba manages to stab Chrysanthemum with his gaffi stick, Chrysanthemum gets the upper hand. He's about to hug Boba to death when the gang of cool teens comes to the rescue. And it's all downhill from there for Chrysanthemum quite literally as they drop this Wookiee warrior into the empty rancor pit. The next morning, Boba and Fennec celebrate having such a useful trapdoor with a feast fit for a daimyo, including what appears to be the wart from earlier in the episode. Now, the feast itself is short-lived because the Hutt twins show up to apologize for sending Chrysanthemum to kill him. Oops, our bad. Whoops. Now, to make restitution, they decide to gift Boba a brand new rancor to fill his empty pit. And if you were hoping for the return of Malik Healy from Return of the Jedi, it's time for you to get a new hope. Thankfully, the new Rancor trainer is played by the one and only Danny Trejo, who also starred director Robert Rodriguez's Machete movies. The Hutt twins claim they're leaving Tatooine to return to their homeworld of Nal Hutta because Mer Mok Shaiz already promised Jabba's domain to another group who we'll soon learn is the Pyke Syndicate. But before they depart, they suggest Boba leaves as well, and they leave Black Chrysanthemum in his custody. To the Wookiee's surprise, Boba immediately frees him after the Hutts leave and gives the bounty hunter some solid advice.
Take it from an ex-bounty hunter. Don't work for skugholes.
Down in the Rancor pen, Boba is absolutely smitten with this adorable yet terrifying creature. Now, many fans were expecting this Rancor to be Muchi, a young Rancor owned by Jabba the Hutt that crossed paths with Omega and Clone Force 99 in the Bad Batch episode Rampage. However, it seems this is a brand new Rancor that's even younger than Muchi was. As Danny Trejo's character explains, despite its reputation for being a murder monster, Rancors are emotionally complex creatures capable of feeling depressed. Wow, Rancors, they're just like us. Anyway, the trainer also mentions that the Witches of Dathomir allegedly ride Rancors around as mounts. First appearing in the 1994 Star Wars Legends novel The Courtship of Princess Leia, the Witches of Dathomir are a group of Force-sensitive female natives of Dathomir, the planet from which Darth Maul also hails. And while their people were once hunted by the Rancor, the Witches of Dathomir eventually tamed the beasts and did in fact ride them around. And Boba is just thrilled by the prospect of riding this Rancor around the desert. He mentions that he's ridden beasts 10 times its size. And while this seems like a throwaway line at first glance, it's actually a reference to the Star Wars Holiday Special. Because before Boba Fett ever appeared in live action, he was teased as an action figure, and he debuted in 1978's infamous Star Wars Holiday Special during an animated segment in which he rode a massive reptilian creature that may or may not be an early version of a mythosaur. Regardless, it's hard to take Boba's line here any other way, so it looks like Life Day came pretty early this year.
Excuse me, Lord Fett.
Not now, I'm busy.
After the Rancor imprints on Boba, he sets off with his brightly colored biker gang to go see the mayor. Unfortunately for them, the Major Domo tries to give him the slip, leading to Fennec saying the Mandalorian's favorite fictional swear word.
Thanks, Ferric.
And then what follows is the single slowest chase I have ever seen. And I've actually seen a slow speed car chase in real life. That was more exciting. During the chase, Boba's bikers and the Major Domo nearly murder a C-3PO-esque protocol droid and a blue and orange astromech droid in the process. The best moment though is when one of the bikers goes flying through a portrait of Jabba's palace. And while this is played for laughs, that's actually an Easter egg in and of itself. This is Ralph McQuarrie's iconic concept art for Jabba's palace in Return of the Jedi. After jostling some poor Bith dudes in a rickshaw, the Majordomo winds up crashing his speeder into a stand full of Malurun fruit, which is apparently the most ubiquitous produce in the galaxy far, far away. Better melons, though, than manure, bud. Better melons than manure. And much like a crate full of Malurun fruit, the Majordomo spills and reveals that the mayor is working with the Pyke Syndicate. I know. We're all shocked. We then cut to a starport where a massive ship flies overhead as a large entourage of Pyke Syndicate troops disembark from a Starliner ship. The Pyke Syndicate is best known for dealing spice, the valuable narcotic they were transporting in Episode 2. The Pyke Syndicate is a powerful criminal organization, as we saw in Solo: A Star Wars Story. In the years before the Galactic Civil War, the Pyke Syndicate also extracted the sought-after starship fuel coaxium from the mines of Kessel. They later tried and failed to bid on Han Solo when he was frozen in carbonite, and as we all know, they ultimately lost out to Jabba the Hutt. So maybe this is their form of late-game revenge? Much like Han, it's a dish best served cold. But regardless, things for the Pyke Syndicate are about to heat up as Boba, Fennec, and the rest of Robert Fettuccine's Tatooine Syndicini prepare for all-out war. Anyway, folks, there you have it. That is everything we spotted in the Book of Boba Fett Episode 3. We have plenty of questions leading into next week's episode, but in the meantime, you can dive deeper into the galaxy far, far away over on Nerdist.com. But first, thanks again to the CW's Naomi for sponsoring today's show. From executive producer Ava DuVernay and Arrow writer and co-executive producer Jill Blankenship comes the out-of-this-world new series Naomi. Join Naomi McDuffie and her crew of Ride or Dies as they set out on a wild and terrifying hunt for answers to a multiversal mystery in their small town. Don't believe everything you think, and don't miss the incredible new series Naomi Tuesdays at 9/8 Central on the CW, or stream free the next day on the CW app. In the meantime, though, folks, let us know, what did you think of the Book of Boba Fett Episode 3? Did you spot anything that we missed?
Not now, I'm busy.
Let us know in the comments below, and for the latest and greatest in the world of pop culture, stay tuned to Nerdist.com.